看看现在离婚的要排队。
Right now, there's a long line for divorces, but not a single person waiting to get married.
Now I understand why marriage doesn't require a waiting period, but divorce does. Look behind me. These are all people waiting to get divorced. Today is the 8th day of the Lunar New Year. The office opened at 9 a.m., and in just 2 hours, this is the scene. I came here to help a client transfer property ownership, and I saw this with my own eyes. Just look at the line. Everyone here is getting a divorce. So far, I've only seen one couple getting married.
During the 2025 Chinese New Year, an unexpected topic gained widespread attention. The phrase, "Did your family argue during the New Year?" dominated trending searches throughout the holiday, resonating with many people. Some shared that before seeing it online, they thought family arguments during the New Year were unique to their own households. The woman said,
I just saw New Year fights trending online. My first thought was, so it's not just my family. That actually made me feel a bit better. In my home, fights can break out over anything, from something as small as a chopstick falling on the floor, too much filling in dumplings, or even a child coughing, to something as big as the footballer Messi controversy or international conflicts. The new year is supposed to be a time of joy, but in reality, the more people gather, the more arguments happen. The reasons are endless. If you can think of it, it can probably start a fight. Even now, I don't understand. Getting together for the holiday isn't easy, so why do people end up arguing?
Among the most serious disputes were those between married couples. These conflicts were not limited to verbal arguments. Some escalated into physical altercations, including fights and overturned tables. As a result, when civil affairs offices reopened after the holiday, the number of people lining up for divorces exceeded those queuing up for free giveaways. Some believe the high divorce rate is due to the low cost of marriage for women.
离婚率越来越高，到底是什么原因？
I think the high divorce rate comes down to marriage being too easy for women. If women had to buy a house and a car before getting married, would they still talk about divorce so casually? If they had to pay the groom a dowry worth hundreds of thousands, would they still be so quick to bring up divorce? If women were the ones responsible for financially supporting the household after marriage, the divorce rate would be much lower. Right now, women receive a bride price when they get married and can still make money when they divorce. That's why they feel so confident about leaving. They have nothing to lose. But for men, we spend a fortune on the wedding, and when we divorce, we lose even more. It's really tough for us. However, others argue that women choose to divorce because their husbands show little personal growth after marriage and fail to provide a stable life. One person commented,
Have you ever noticed that 80% of women in the beauty industry are divorced, and many of the most successful ones are also divorced? That includes me. I think the main reason is that women today are more independent. They've realized their value and unlocked their potential. And at some point, they start to see that the husband they chose isn't supporting them, isn't helping the family, and isn't taking responsibility for the household. Most women get married thinking they will take care of the home and family, but over time they realize their husband can't provide financial stability or fulfill his role. That's when they understand that relying on themselves is the only way to have a better life. So these women step up and start building careers. The more successful they become, the wider the gap with their husbands. And a lot of men can't handle having a wife who is more accomplished than them, so they try to bring her down. That's when divorce happens.
On February 1st, Chinese authorities announced that the new marriage law had officially taken effect. The key change in this law is a clearer definition of property ownership. In the past, divorce disputes often centered around the division of property purchased during marriage. A home, once seen as the foundation of a family during happy times, often became the biggest source of conflict when a relationship falls apart. The new law states that property is divided based on financial contribution. If a couple buys a home, ownership is determined by the proportion each person paid. If the husband paid for the home in full, the wife will not receive any share of the property in a divorce, even if her name is on the deed. Another common scenario involves parents purchasing a home for their son. Under the new law, such property remains entirely owned by the parents, with no claim from the spouse. The law also clarifies the status of personal property acquired before marriage. If one spouse fully paid for a home before the wedding and registered it in their name, it remains their personal property. Similarly, any property inherited or explicitly gifted to one spouse during the marriage is also considered personal property. In the past, many families of brides would insist on adding the wife's name to the property deed as a form of security and goodwill. While this could be a gesture of commitment in a strong marriage, it also led to disputes in cases of deception or short-lived unions. For men, the new law eliminates such conflicts and aims to prevent rushed or fraudulent marriages. For women, however, it significantly reduces the financial security marriage once provided. The idea that marrying well is better than living well, once prominent in China, is now considered outdated. The law also imposes stricter penalties on infidelity. If one spouse is found to have cheated, they may receive a smaller share of assets in a divorce, or in some cases, none at all. Following the law's enactment, many men have expressed strong support, while women have been far more critical. Some argue that this law discourages women from getting married altogether, as marriage now offers fewer protections compared to remaining single. A widely shared comparison of the 2025 marriage law highlights two controversial clauses. The third article of the law states that after divorce, bride price payments must be returned, but dowries given voluntarily do not need to be refunded. The fourth article states that raising children is considered unpaid labor, effectively dismissing the value of women's contributions to marriage and family. Critics argue this provision has shattered any remaining hopes women had in the institution of marriage. Some social media users have analyzed the new marriage law and public reactions to predict 4 possible trends that may emerge after its implementation. First, bride price demands may rise, while marriage rates could continue to decline. Some women may even prefer cohabitation over legal marriage, as a marriage certificate now offers little security, and divorce has become increasingly difficult. Second, fewer women may choose to have children. Motherhood could mean becoming an unpaid caretaker who is undervalued, while property ownership and a child's surname typically go to the husband's side. If a woman is divorced, she could be left with nothing.
看最近的新婚姻法没有关于夫妻财产 Have you seen the new marriage law? It says that whatever money you earn is yours. What's yours is yours, and what's mine is mine. If her house was bought before marriage, it still belongs to the original owner after divorce, even if my name was later added to the deed. If the house was bought during marriage but paid for by the husband's parents, I wouldn't get a single cent after divorce. This means the traditional idea of men earning and women managing the household no longer applies. The law doesn't care how much housework I do, how many years I spend as a stay-at-home wife, how many kids I have, or how much I sacrifice for the family. It only protects the person with financial assets. So no matter how much money my husband makes, if we get divorced, I won't get a penny. After learning about this law, I lost all motivation. I don't feel like cleaning, washing clothes, or taking care of the kids. Why? Because none of that counts. If I worked as a nanny, I could make 5,000 to 6,000 yuan a month, but right now I have no job and no income, and no matter how much I do, it won't mean anything. So don't call me lazy anymore. You can take care of the kids, cook your own meals, and wash your own clothes.
Third, financially independent women may avoid both marriage and cohabitation altogether. Those who want children might turn to IVF or surrogacy to have higher quality offspring, opting for relationships without legal commitment. This could fundamentally disrupt the traditional family structure in China. Finally, gender tensions may escalate, and the trend of avoiding marriage could intensify. Men who are seen as less desirable in terms of looks, status, or wealth may remain single. If marriage no longer provides financial security, status, or control over a child's surname, some argue there is little incentive for women to get married.
现在啊，最可怕的不是90后不生孩子，也不是00后。
Right now, the real concern isn't that Gen Z isn't having kids or that younger generations are avoiding marriage. The bigger issue is that even people in their 40s are now supporting their children's decision not to get married or have kids. Especially after the new marriage law took effect on February 1st, more people will likely choose to remain single, especially women. This should serve as a wake-up call. Relying on others is never as secure as relying on yourself. To put it simply, the core of the new marriage law is that assets belong to their original owner. Even if a property is transferred during marriage, it's not considered joint property. No matter how much effort a spouse puts into the household, if they don't have their own income, they will receive nothing after a divorce. For women, financial independence is the only real security. No matter how great the passenger seat is, nothing beats being in control of the wheel yourself.
Former Peking University professor Guo Chunlin believes the rising divorce rate is an inevitable social trend. He said,
In
the next 30 to 40 years, the divorce rate could reach 300%. Some people might go through 3 divorces in their lifetime. This is just a natural part of social development. Marriage stability is no longer based on traditional values. In the past, family pressure kept marriages together. Now, the law plays that role. But at its core, marriage used to be stable because women depended on men. Today, as society moves toward equality, that dependency is fading. I often say that the instability in marriage isn't caused by men. It's because women are becoming more independent. In traditional society, women had no financial power. Now, with equal rights and awareness, they are challenging old norms. In the past, people believed that women belonged to the home, while men belonged to the world. Women had to marry to experience the world through their husbands. Today, women can access the world directly without needing a man as a bridge. As women become more independent in wealth, personality, and freedom, they also become more dominant in relationships. This naturally leads to higher divorce rates. It's a reflection of social progress. Beyond legal changes, the rising divorce rate is also closely tied to economic conditions. Studies show a complex relationship between economic growth and divorce rates. Some research based on China Family Panel Studies data suggests that personal income and spending are positively correlated with divorce, especially among women. However, other analyses using data from the China Statistical Yearbook indicate an inverse relationship, where higher disposable income is associated with lower divorce rates. As the economy weakens and household incomes become unstable, divorce rates tend to spike. On February 8th, China's Ministry of Civil Affairs released national marriage registration data for 2024. According to its fourth quarter report, there were 6.1 million marriage registrations nationwide in 2024, while 2.6 million couples registered for divorce. In comparison, 2023 saw 7.7 million marriages and 2.6 million divorces. This means that in 2024, marriage registrations dropped by 1.6 million, a decline of about 20.5%, while divorce registrations increased by 30,000, or roughly 1.1%. This marks another decline in marriage registrations after a brief rebound following the COVID-19 pandemic and policy interventions. Data from the Ministry of Civil Affairs shows that divorce numbers peaked in 2019, with 4.7 million cases and a divorce rate of 3.4 per thousand. The number declined in 2020 due to the pandemic and further dropped in 2021, after China introduced a mandatory cooling-off period for divorces. However, divorces began rising again in 2022, with a significant increase in 2023. With the economy slowing down, for many young people, getting married, having children, and taking on loans for housing or cars are seen as financial burdens that place a heavy strain on their future. When economic prospects are uncertain, cutting expenses becomes a survival strategy. In an interview with Voice of America, 32-year-old Zhang Yu said that economic downturn has had a direct impact on marriage rates. He explained that in northeastern China, where the one-child policy was strictly enforced, couples are often responsible for supporting 4 elderly parents in addition to their own children. The financial strain is enormous, and this has contributed to the rising divorce rate. With the real estate sector struggling, local government debt soaring, and private businesses shutting down, high unemployment has made it difficult for many families to stay afloat. For some, economic hardship has become the breaking point that leads to separation and divorce.
我离婚了，在武汉买的房子已经断供半。
I got divorced, and the house I bought in Wuhan has been in default for 6 months. I can't afford the mortgage anymore, and my life is falling apart. That's what my college roommate told me recently. He bought a house in 2019 for his marriage, back when prices were at their peak. Since he couldn't afford the full down payment, he borrowed money to cover the difference and took out a 1.6 million yuan mortgage. His monthly payment was over 9,000 yuan. At first, his business selling construction materials was doing well, bringing in 20 to 30,000 yuan a month. He thought he could handle the mortgage, but as the economy slowed, business declined, and his shop eventually closed. With no income, he couldn't keep up with the mortgage, and the financial strain led to constant arguments with his wife. Eventually, they got divorced. He said he had to accept reality and took a job delivering food to make ends meet. Hearing his story really hit me. I truly advise against rushing into home ownership. If you can't even afford a 20 or 30% down payment, maybe now isn't the right time to buy. With the current economy, even job stability isn't guaranteed. Who knows if your company will still be around next year? My advice? Focus on building financial security first. Once you've saved enough and have a stable income, then consider buying a home. Beyond societal and economic factors, morality also plays a significant role in divorce rates, particularly when it comes to loyalty in marriage. However, under the Chinese Communist Party's rule, the moral foundation of marital commitment has been deeply eroded. The CCP once promoted the idea of shared property, shared wives, aiming to dismantle traditional marriage structures. It opposed arranged marriages and encouraged free love, using terms like true love and openness to justify and normalize promiscuity. Meanwhile, legal loopholes have made it easier to engage in extramarital affairs with little consequence, fostering a culture where infidelity is not only tolerated, but in some cases even glamorized. As early as 2012, data showed that 95% of corrupt officials exposed in investigations had mistresses. More than 60% of those involved in corruption scandals were linked to keeping a second wife. Infidelity became a status symbol among the powerful, while high-profile affairs between government officials and business figures frequently made headlines. Many saw these scandals as a sign of moral decline. When those in positions of power fail to uphold moral standards, it sets an example for the rest of society. In a system where the top is corrupt, it is unsurprising that divorce rates continue to rise.